Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more 2025 to 2026 state governments and officials. Today, we are looking at the state of Florida. Yeah, the far end butt crack, the southeast of the United States. If you look at the United States as someone sitting down like this, Florida is that turd hanging off the end of the country's butt. Now that I've attacked the state enough, goodness. Let's go ahead and look at this. Of course, like every state, they began with a constitution. This is the November the 5th, 1968 Constitution, which more than likely is not the first if you've had to have a new one, as if it's only ratified as recent as 68, because we got it in what? Early 1800s? Yeah. Now, Florida was originally a Spanish state, acquired by the U.S. under, I believe, Andrew Jackson. Yeah, 1861. Ordinance of Secession. So, yeah. We had picked it up was in the 1830s. Yeah, before 1838. Only the Spanish Constitution of 1812 was briefly enacted in Florida. There was an 1838 convention for it to become a state and join the Union of the growing U.S. We're 52 years of age at this point as a nation when we acquire Florida from Spain. But yeah, it is one of these states that goes, oh, we're leaving the Union. And it's not one you often think of when you think of all the states that seceded. But yeah, 1861 Constitution of Florida, because of course he wants to go, I'm my own state now. And so it made its own. Then you have an 1865 Constitution, though it was not approved, it was just brought into light. And the 1868 Florida Constitution was then enacted. 1885 Florida Constitution. and finally you get to 1968, which is the current one they roll with. So this is not new. We've seen a number of states like this where they've had a number of constitutions. But yeah, their current one is, of course, was ratified November 5th, 1968. Now, a look at the government. The state of Florida itself, I believe the capital is Tallahassee. I do believe that's right. Yeah. Seat in Tallahassee, capital city of Florida. So, I thought I remembered that right. I remember most of the capitals for our 50 states, but occasionally there's one that escapes your mind. Just being able to remember all 50 states is something pretty decent, and then you remember the capital cities. It's like trying to remember, and you think of some states, and it's like all you can think of is the bigger city, even though it's not necessarily the capital city, such as the state of Illinois. Chicago, no. Chicago's just the largest city. Capital city, Springfield. But yeah. Anyway. 3 branches: an executive branch, a judicial branch, and a legislative branch. Your executive branch, of course, is your governor, and there is a number of other elected officials: lieutenant governor, attorney general, chief financial officer, and commissioner of agriculture and consumer services. Of course, DeSantis's cabinet, the governor's cabinet. With the list of agencies, and then you have the legislative branch, the state legislature, which is bicameral, which, as you can remember, 2-chambered body. A Senate and a House. Your Senate being the upper chamber and the House the lower chamber. Because your Senate's not supposed to be beholden to a territory, while the House of Representatives is. Your senators are meant to be the more common sense, beholden to the states themselves, whereas your representatives are beholden to a district. So yeah. Alright. House of Representative members serve 2 years for each term. And the Senate serves staggered 4-year terms. So 20 years, there's 2 senators elected, and the next election is the other half of the senators. Which it's common, we see a lot with the federal government and the other states, that it goes that way. Let's see. What else we got here? Judicial systems. The Florida judicial system, or state court systems, consist of course, starting off, your Florida Supreme Court, and then you have, there are appellate courts, courts of appeal, 5 of them, that sit just under the Supreme Court. Yeah, the 5 courts of appeals. And then you have 2 forms of trial courts, your 20 circuit courts and 67 county courts. So your circuit courts are your more regional, and your county courts are, of course, every county. So given that, we're probably looking at about, for each circuit, around 3 counties, give or take, based on how big the city that's near them is. Budget, state, capital capital city is Tallahassee. St. Augustine is one of your oldest cities in Florida, because, yeah, it was one of the first cities founded in the U.S. Because you got to remember, the Spanish didn't find their way in by the coast or up through Mexico. They kind of landed off the coast of Florida and started exploring inland from there. When it came to the now United States. Local governments. Okay, so that gives us a big overview. With that, let's get into this. Your current governor of the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis. He is not a good person. 4 terms, renewable once consecutively. So, back to back. That, having it said that way makes me wonder, can you go 4 years, skip, 4 years, skip, 4 years? Anyway, yeah. Executive orders, veto bills passed by the legislature or approve them. Proposing and overseeing the state budget, making key appointments to state offices, granting pardons. Florida was first acquired by the U.S. future President Andrew Jackson, serving as military governor. So I guess technically that would make Andrew Jackson the first governor of the state. The governor's mansion in Tallahassee, like the White House in Washington, D.C. It's while they serve their job, that is where they reside, or are supposed to. Our current pathetic excuse for a president likes to go back to his little club house in Florida. I hate the man so much. Let's see. And we have other elected executives, or members of the executive branch. Of course, we mentioned DeSantis. You also have Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, Attorney General James Uthmeier, Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingaglia, and your commissioner, I think Wilton Simpson is his name. It just says meet Commissioner Simpson, but I think his full name is Wilton Simpson. Yeah. Now, let's take a look at the cabinet, or at least cabinet departments and stuff. You have the Administration Commission, Board of Trustees of the Internal Improvement Trust Fund, Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, Department of Law Enforcement, Department of Revenue, Division of Bond Finance, Election Canvassing Commission, Florida Land and Water Adjudicatory Commission, blah. Financial Services Commission, Power Plant and Transmission Lines. I don't think that's a word. I think you're meant to say Sitting Board, which would require an extra T. If it's supposed to be siding, it should be spelled with which require an extra T. And if it's supposed to be siding, it's spelled with a C, not an S. Unless it's supposed to be something like sitting. Anyway, Power Plant and Transmission Line Sitting Board, State Board of Administration, State Board of Executive Clemency, and State Board of Immigration Enforcement. These are the Florida Cabinet positions. Let's see if they mention a few others over here where we're looking at the government of Florida. Florida's unique among U.S. states in having a strong cabinet-style government. Members of the Florida cabinet are independently elected, so that's interesting, and have equal footing with the governor on issues under the cabinet's jurisdiction. The cabinet consists of the Attorney General, the Commissioner of Agriculture, and the Chief Financial Officer. We've already met them. Along with the governor, each member carries one vote in the decision-making process. And in the event of a tie, the side of the governor is the prevailing side. The cabinet elections are held every 4 years and even number years not divisible by 4. So they elect, it apparently says, all members of the cabinet independently. Now, we've already met the Attorney General. Again, I would like to know who these people are, who these individuals are, but yeah. Administration Commission. Board of Trustees. They don't list any names or anything. Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. Oh, no names listed. Just departments. But apparently, the members are hired independently. So, interesting. Now, let's go look at the legislature. As we've already talked about, bicameral, Senate, House, staggered elections. You've got a Senate President, Ben Albritton, and House Speaker Daniel Perez. In your Senate, 40 members. 40 members. You currently have a breakdown of 26 Republicans, 11 Democrats, and 1 independent. Are these empty seats, the dark black? That's all I can think of. The light, the gray here, is supposed to be independent. Four, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 6, 12, 16, 20, 27 is what we've got here. I may be counting that wrong. 4, 7, 11, 15, 19, 23, and 27. So yeah, I'm getting 27 instead of the 26 they say here. But anyway, and only 10 Democrats, so they may have done their math a little off, a little wonky. So these might either be vacant or other independent, a separate third party. Interesting. And of course your House, 120 members. So 120 districts within the state of Florida. And remember, they've only got 67 counties, so a lot of these districts are small. Some of them are cities or parts of cities, because cities usually have so much more population. 84 Republicans to 32 Democrats. And 4 are vacant at the moment. that this was put up. Yeah, and again, they meet in Tallahassee, where it is the state's capital. Let's look at the court system finally. As we mentioned, there is a Supreme Court. 6. Oh, they say 6 instead of 5. I think 5 was what this over here had. Yeah, 5 courts of appeals, while this has 6. Your 20 circuit courts, which handle cases, civil cases involving more than $50,000, and criminal felony cases. And of course, your county courts are involving $50,000 or less, and misdemeanor. Of course, Supreme Court, highest court in the state. 7 judges, the Chief Justice, and 6 associate justices. It's the highest you can go to in a case in Florida, unless it's picked up by the U.S. Supreme Court. That can only, I think it's straight to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, because it wouldn't go the federal courts first, I don't think. Anyway, yeah. Your district courts of appeal, and it shows where they're headquartered. So there are 6. The first district court of appeals in Tallahassee. Your second district court of appeal is in Tampa. Your third district court of appeal is in Miami. Your 4th district court of appeals in West Palm Beach. Your 5th district court of appeals in Daytona Beach. And the 6th district court of appeal is in Lakeland. Lakeland and Tampa are pretty close to each other, aren't they? I believe. So that leaves like Tallahassee, the only northernmost district court. It's when as you go further down the state, that your districts get smaller and smaller. I'm not sure where Daytona Beach is. It might be further up. But I think Tallahassee would be the northernmost. Also, I'm not sure on West Palm Beach, but I know Miami's far, far south. Tampa and Lakeland are pretty close to each other. Oh, yeah. West Palm Beach is on the the eastern side of the state, further, pretty far south. So, Anyway, that's where you can appeal to besides the Supreme Court. They are, as they say, the intermediate appellate courts. So usually you'll go to a court of appeal, one of the district courts. Your circuit courts, as we talked about, are the more serious crimes. Here they're saying it's greater than 30,000. Lots of contradictions on this, I'm noticing, so things need to get themselves straightened out here. Uh, they have jurisdiction over domestic relations, juvenile dependency, juvenile delinquency, and probate matters. 20 in total. Miami-Dade, Broward, Monroe, Palm Beach, and Hillsborough are the only counties which are coterminous with their respective judicial courts. And in the state, a single judicial court encompasses multiple counties within its jurisdiction. Yeah, so normally they would have multiple counties, but these particular counties are the only ones who the judicial court for them is solely for them. And because, like I said, remember, there's only 20 throughout the state, and there's 67 counties. But Miami-Dade and Broward County share the city of Miami, so their populations are pretty big. Palm Beach, pretty big because it's got West Palm Beach in it and stuff. And then Monroe and Hillsborough counties. Their populations are large enough that their circuit courts have no other counties in them. And then there are 4 circuit courts that have created business court programs. The 9th Judicial Circuit, Orange and Osceola counties. The 11th Judicial Circuit, Miami-Dade County. The 13th Judicial Circuit, Hillsborough County. And the 17th Judicial Circuit, Broward counties. Uh, 2004 Ninth Circuit Chief Judge Belvin Perry made Judge Rene Roche Florida's first specialized business court judge. And along with Judge John E. Jordan, have served as business court representatives to the American Bar Association's Business Law section. So, specific business law judges. Judge Gil Freeman is the first judge presiding over Miami's complex business litigation section, serving in that role for 5 years. Probably Jill Freeman, because it says she is co-chair of Florida's Bar Association's Business Law Section Business Courts Task Force, which was formed in 2018 to study the merits of implementing a statewide business court. In early 2020, on the precipice of the COVID pandemic, the task force recommended a proposed statewide business court. So that is something they have been looking at. Business court. They have a number of judges who deal with business law. And of course you have the county courts, original jurisdiction over misdemeanor criminal cases, including violations of county and municipal ordinances, and civil cases whose value or in controversy does not exceed the max limit. Like I said, in the one it was 50,000, the other here it's 30,000. So, yeah. Um, all new judges are required to complete this curriculum during their first year of service after selection to the bench. The program is taught by the state's most experienced appellate and trial court judges. Curriculum includes, in January, comprehensive orientation, in-depth trial skills workshop, a mock trial experience, and other classes. In March, intensive substantive law courses with education for those who are switching divisions and or new trial judges. There is a separate program for new appellate judges, and a mentor is available for new trial court judges to provide one-on-one guidance from an experienced judge. Not a bad idea. A judicial college, though I hate to mention this, and but it permeates so much of our politics nowadays. Partisan bullshit. So yeah. January 1st, 1997. Florida was the only U.S. jurisdiction that denies legal representation for those unable to pay public defenders based upon one's inability to pay. So basically, if you're poor, you're fucked. That's what that means. That's why there should always be an option of public help, public defenders. But apparently, Florida doesn't believe in that. But yeah, that's been a look at the judiciary of Florida. It's state courts and everything. And overall, it's been a look at the state. As far as its government, its officials. Couldn't get as much of the officials since we found out that the cabinet was elected officials, but that's okay. This has been a look, regardless, this has been a look at their state government and officials. As always, thank you all for watching. Or educate thyself. I can't even get my shit right here. Educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing. Ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.